ba itong pelikula na ginawa namin. So, excited talaga ako na mapanood ng mga pamilya ko din dyan.
ng mga fans mo, Princess. Diba? Itong yung pelikula.
Yeah.
Eva, ikaw naman.
Diane pretty much summed it up for me. I think Princess 2 summed it up for me too, but I don't speak Tagalog except for the bad words and the food. So, but I know I will agree with her with what she's saying. Yeah, it is like coming home, because just like Diane's incredible quote about Filipinos being virtually invisible on a media platform in the United States and America. I mean, it's so nice to be able to make the rounds, and I think this is what Princess was saying, for all the film festivals, and finally like go through the finish line of showing everybody, and now it's like, and this was made for you. It's seen everybody else. It's struck the hearts of people who from all over the world, and now it's finally coming back to the root of it all. So yeah, it's coming home. That's really cool to say like that.
Thank you, Eva. Before I call in Manay Ethel Ramos to throw in the first question, Diane, is this a true story?
It's not. It's kind of very, very loosely based on my time growing up in Texas. I grew up in Texas, and as a teenager, I played music too. Not anywhere as near as good as Eva, as Rose, but and I didn't play country music. I had a mohawk, and I was in a terrible band. And but music was my outlet. I felt, like a square peg in a round hole, which is one of the songs in the film. And but I sort of flipped it around and made the character love Texas, because there's not a lot of Filipinos in Texan country music. Yet this girl who grew up in Texas feels as Texan as the next guy, and why shouldn't she have a place in that art form? So it was a bit of a fable, but and a metaphor of the American dream. Mm-hmm. But there's some truth in everything that happens in the film. I did extensive research because I'm a documentary filmmaker. So I interviewed a lot of Filipino families, and their stories and what happened to them as they went through the system are what we see in the film. So it's a very true to life story. And even as we were shooting it, families were being separated. Kids were being thrown in cages. Just these brutal separations of people in the name of, immigration. So it's not a true story, but it's based on very real things that are happening to real people all over America.
Right. How about you, Eva? Is this close to home? Do you know anyone who's experienced what your character has experienced in the movie?
I know a handful of people who are close to me that I care very much about, and who are wonderfully large advocates of the arts in New York City, who are undocumented. And I didn't know that until the Black Lives Matter protests here in New York City, where, they would say, hey, I'm going to give you my 2-minute warning. And when I feel unsafe, can you walk me home? And I was like, absolutely. We'll go when you're ready to go, because we can't risk that. And the only, I guess, comparison or parallel that I have is, I was born and raised in San Diego, California girl down to the bone. But my parents, reaching for a better life than what we were born in, we went to North Carolina, and we lived in many different rural and suburban, everywhere you could possibly imagine in North Carolina, we lived. And there was a moment where we were living 4 in a room, myself, my infant sister, my mother and father, in a small, tiny bedroom with my cousins who had 6 kids. And they lived with the 2 parents and the 2 grandma and grandpa. So it was a lot of people packed, and I watched my mom and dad break their backs to support us. They were so young. They were like 23, 24. And that's the only thing I had of being raised, is being plucked out of this enriching and beautifully cultured city like San Diego, where I was a part of both of my ethnicities equally, and then being tossed into somewhere like Mooresville, North Carolina, where people won't just look at you, they will ask you, why are you here? Right. To my parents. So I witnessed that from a young age, the the prejudice and the stereotypes that were thrown at my mom and dad. So I unfortunately have developed a sort of bitterness for Southern pride that's based more on the side of ignorance. So I can relate to Rose in that way, of feeling like you're trying to make a home for yourself, and other people end up being massive obstacles in your way of trying to be comfortable with where you are geographically. So yeah, I can relate to that a little bit. But Texas was something else. Texas was so special, and I'm so grateful that Diane, let me go there and experience Austin and Texas for what it is.
Wow, we're just beginning, but the stories are already rich. So thank you, Eva, for sharing that. Princess, how is it for you? Kasi yung character mo dito, parang it's a very familiar story to some of our Filipino friends.
Yeah. It is familiar dahil marami akong kilalang Pilipino na natatakot dahil hindi nga sila documented. Kung ano-anong ginagawa para lang manatili sa Amerika at hindi naging madali para sa kanila ang mabuhay. Katulad nga na sinabi ni Eva na madalas nakikitira sa mga kamag-anak, kaibigan at palipat-lipat ng bahay. Minsan para silang sardinas, ang dami-dami nila sa isang kwarto. So, hindi madali ang maging undocumented dito.
Wow. We can't wait to see yung paano visualize ni Direct Diane itong movie na to with that story. But okay, enough of me. Let me just I masyado lang akong na immersed with your stories and your answers. But let me call in first Manay Ethel Ramos for her first question. Hi Manay Ethel, good afternoon.
NJ.
Hi.
Gusto ko malaman, why the title?
Why Yellow Rose? Direct Diane?
Yeah, so Yellow Rose is a very famous Texas song. It's a song that was written a long time ago, and any Texan knows it. It's the Yellow Rose of Texas is actually the song. But in the case of this movie, because it's such a famous song, people tease Rose and call her Yellow Rose as a derogatory term. Yellow meaning Asian or Chinese, and she kind of tells that story a little bit. So it's a sort of double entendre in that. And the other story behind that is that as I was doing research, the actual Yellow Rose song, which is a very popular song back in, I guess it was in the 20s and 30s, and then it became kind of like a state song. The original song was actually about a mulatto girl, and the yellow term there actually was about her being mixed race. And that's not something a lot of people know about. So there's kind of an even third underlying meaning about that. So it means a lot of things, and you kind of find that out in the film.
Interesting answer about Yellow Rose. Manay?
Kaya I thought, kasi at first, it's a musical.
Okay.
Did Leia get to sing the song Yellow Rose?
No, she doesn't. She sings a song called Sings Dahil Sa'yo, which is a song that's sung several times in the film. Without giving away any spoilers, in the beginning of the film, Princess sings this song to Rose, kind of as a lullaby, but it's also this way to pass the culture down. And it's, it was a song that my dad and mom sang to me when I was younger, and now they sing it to my daughter. So it's always been this song that reminds me of the Philippines. And I think a lot of Filipino Americans, I know when we would play the movie in film festivals, people would sing along to, the Filipinos in the audience would sing along to it. And as we see it at different times in the film, it takes on a different meaning. I'll leave it at that, but it's definitely a leitmotif.
Wow. Manay?
Kay Princess, tell us a few things about this movie. about how you were able to portray your role. Really,
Unang-una po, natutuwa ako, matagal tayo hindi nagkita, tita, tita Ethel. Hindi po naging mahirap sa akin ang paghahanda para sa role na ito dahil yung role ko po ay nanay ni Eva dito, ni Rose. At meron na po akong anak ngayon, 6 years old na siya. At sa lahat ng mga eksena na ginawa ko with Eva, inisip ko lang na paano kung 10 years from now, itong anak ko na ang ka-eksena ko at sinasabi niya sa akin kung ano yung sinasabi sa akin ni Rose. So hindi naging mahirap po sa akin ang motivation para maging motherly at maging really involved sa mga eksena. I really felt yung fear, yung concern, yung anxiety, paano na mangyayari sa anak ko pag nawala na ako. So yun po.
thank you, Princess. Thank you, Eva, and thank you, everybody. Thank you, MJ.
Thank you, Manay Ethel Ramos, for your time, for joining us. I'm curious, Diane, did they audition for the role, or did you handpick Eva, Leia, and Princess to do for their roles?
That's a good question. For Princess, I had been referred to her by a mutual friend who directed her in a movie called Johnny Loves Dolores. And that's when I saw her first. And her acting style in that film was so, just so natural and so heartfelt. And when I met her, she was actually helping me audition the young women for the shorts, and just the way she was with everyone, the warmth that she showed, I kind of gave her that part. But it would be another 5 years before we would make the movie. As far as Eva is concerned, I auditioned hundreds of girls in the course. The film took a long time to make, and I had heard about Eva because she was cast in Miss Saigon as we were casting for our short, and I really thought she was really compelling. And then she was in that for a couple of years, and when we finally got the financing to do the feature film, I'd heard that the run of Miss Saigon was coming to an end, and that Eva might have this little window where we could shoot the film. And so I went to see her on Broadway before I had sent her the script, so she had already seen the script. And I went to see her on Broadway, and almost like every girl I ever saw before that just went away. She blew me away in every way. Just her style of acting was naturalistic, especially for a theater actor. She had an incredible magnetic presence. But then that kind of sealed the deal when we met in person, and just her effervescent personality, but also her sincerity and her seriousness about music. Because I really wanted to cast somebody who was serious about music, and she is. And she was Rose, so I offered her the part on the spot, and I'll let her finish that story.
All right.
Eva, talk about that. Like, what made you
Go, Eva.
What made you accept?
Well, look, Miss Saigon is obviously about a Vietnamese young girl, which I am not. And thankfully, the other roles I've done have been, windows into the imagination. Anybody who looks like anything can play any role. So I was lucky to have kind of, walk the tightrope in those specific roles. But I had never really found a true calling when it came to who I was as a young woman. And after coming off the edge of the Miss Saigon revival in New York, I had the total lifetime honor of creating friendships with people who were also like me, either full Filipino or half Filipino, and they would just be questioning themselves as an Asian American. And we had so many enriching, cultivating conversations about how jacked up Miss Saigon actually is, and how, we sacrifice part of ourselves as Asians to become chameleons in the arts because we need a job. When there's an Asian, you fill it with an Asian, regardless of what kind of Asian you're playing. And so we talked about what that meant to us and how depleted we felt after doing the run for like a year. I had done it for 3.5 years at that point. So the second I met Diane and I had read the script and she offered it to me on our business meeting, and I was like, seriously, you want me, a young Filipina, to play a Filipina? And she was like, yes. And I was like, I'm in. I'm absolutely 100% in. It was the first time that I'd ever seen a true representation of myself. And something as well that hasn't really been flipped over and dusted off in America. A story about a young woman of color who's also undocumented, and we're rooting for her. Come on. Like, that is something that had been unheard of at that point in my career. So Diane reaching her hand out to me to be a part of this incredible project was honestly one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life.
I think the stars aligned for you and Diane to do this.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Film.
And
Yeah.
also, she's incredibly fun and just allows, as Princess and Leia and everybody in the film involved and anyone who's ever worked with her, she allows the actor to breathe. She doesn't have standards. She has standards for the effect of the project, but she doesn't give you hurdles. She lets you breathe. She lets you sit and into the material so that you feel like you are that character.
That's right.
It's not like she's saying, oh, and when we go here, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to feel like this. She was like, no, what do you feel as Rose? And that's what allowed this product to be not only extremely organic, but authentic in a way that makes it quite exhilarating to watch and to be a part of. So thank you, Diane. Thank you.
I just want to, if you don't mind, I want to brag a little bit on Eva. Eva was just selected by Backstage, which is the magazine that all the actors read, as one of the top 20 performances of 2020. I just want to read some of the names that she's on the list with: Margot Robbie, Michelle Pfeiffer, Meryl Streep, Carey Mulligan, Elizabeth Moss, Sienna Miller, Frances McDormand, Julie Louis-Dreyfus, Sophia Loren, Vanessa Kirby, Rashida Jones, and Eva Noblezada.
Sophia Loren?
Yes. And I just want to read what Backstage said about her performance, because one of the main things I want to do in this press conference is to introduce you to this extraordinary talent. And it says, Noblezada wears her heart on her sleeve, and Diane Paragas' searing ode and diatribe against the American dream. As Rose Garcia, a Texas teen aspiring songwriter whose mother, Princess Punzalan, is deported back to the Philippines, she channels that heart into country music. Broadway audiences have heard her firsthand, how the actor infuses her every note with palpable emotion. That skill is no less felt on screen.
Wow.
Just for a Filipino to be in the company of Meryl Streep, Viola Davis, Sophia Loren, I mean, is extraordinary. And I commend you.